Hello everyone, and welcome to this very first video of a series that is going to touch a lot of points about programming and many aspects of microservices-based architecture, as well as front-end development and many other topics. So this is the first video. Thought that we can have a brief introduction about what I have in mind for this series, and then we will start getting our hands dirty with some programming. So before we begin, that's me. So my name is Lauro, and I've been working as a full stack developer for a few years. Personally, I have a very strong interest in the engineering and the architecture part of development, and as such I find it quite fascinating, the challenge of thinking about an application from the lenses of microservices. Now, of course, not every application has to be a microservice or a set of microservices. Maybe here we wouldn't need to have it if we were developing this for an actual application, a commercial application. But my goal here is to cover many of the aspects and provide an option or an alternative for many of the challenges that come across when implementing services with or implementing applications with microservices. So this is more of a personal also journey to learn a lot of these aspects. I admit I'm not fully versed in this universe of microservices, nor in the universe of full stack development, but I'm so curious about it and I'm very interested in it that I want to go after the knowledge, and it really helps me that I can share with you in practical terms, right? So what I read, what I study, what I try, that then we can bring this to a universe where we go into the real code. Watching conference videos is very nice, reading books is very nice, reading blog articles is maybe sometimes very nice, depends on who is recording, right? Or who is writing. But if I can bring you some practical knowledge into it, then I think that I can help you and help myself understand these ideas even better. Right, so if you want to contact me, you can also write me an email at contact@lauromüller.com. The website itself at the moment of recording of this video is under reconstruction, so I'm not sure when I'm going to finish with it because I'm dedicating time to other things. But you can also reach me via email, or on LinkedIn you can always send me a message. Okay, table of contents for today. So my plan is to start with a brief introduction to our goals, the high-level tech stack that we're going to use, and then what we want to achieve today. So the overall goals of this series is I want to improve my knowledge on microservices patterns, and I want to help you come in contact with not only theory but also practical implementation of many of the challenges that microservices naturally bring to the scene. I also want to improve my knowledge on backend and front-end development, and I want to help you also with backend and front-end development. Test-driven development, right? This is one thing that many people talk about it. Nobody does it. It's tricky to some extent because tests can never guarantee that the software is fully operational. They can only point failures, right? So they can only say the software is failing here, but they can never say that the software is 100% functional. But to a great extent, we will actually start with test-driven development. We will write tests first, and then we will code in order to make those tests pass. Maybe over time we can also go into more details about testing and some of the theory behind software testing, some of the theory also behind test-driven development. But so this is one of the main goals of this series. Software product management. So one thing that we are going to do here is that as time passes, we will have our own Jira board, and we will have the possibility of tracking issues, of creating bugs, of creating user stories, of organizing our Scrum, our sprints, and doing some interesting work in terms of software product management, right? So I'm also very interested in this. I've done a couple of courses here, and of course at work we use some of the principles. So I also want to use this while discussing and evolving this project or developing this project. Project management is another thing related to software product management, but it also relates to how I'm going to manage the project as a whole, right? So while the software product management would be more in the side of how do I manage the product that I am developing, the project management side is how do I manage the actual work that is being done, right? So this will also be part of the series. Then UX UI design, also want to discuss a few principles with you, and other topics, of course. So as you can imagine, or as you can already see, there are quite a few topics that I want to cover, and this is going to be a very lengthy series. Perhaps I'm gonna break this down into individual, let's say, playlists on YouTube, or individual sections that I can group together videos, because it's not going to be the case that all the videos are going to be sequential, right? So we will maybe start with some test-driven development to get our first things running, discuss a little bit of backend to get some authentication service. Then we discuss a little bit of UX UI to get a basic front end. Then we start talking about microservice patterns, for example, and then we go back and forth between these topics. So I'll see how this evolves, and I will try to keep it as organized and as clear as possible. Okay, another goal: develop qualitative coding skills, meaning code organization, meaning the architecture patterns when applied to code. So maybe this is not such a correct statement, but in terms of having code that is easy to refactor, easy to understand, that is easy to move around, easy to change, right? I don't want to develop, for example, a front end that if I need to change something, I need to change everything. So in this sense, qualitative coding skills would be ensuring that your code is maintainable over the long run. And I heard many people saying, yeah, I don't want clean code, I want code that works, even in conferences saying this. Well, that is very, from my perspective, that's a very big misunderstanding of the point. Because if you don't think about how your code is going to be maintained, then at some point you will eventually run into a wall, and you will need a lot of time to address that. So having code that is easy to maintain is something that, from my perspective, is very important. We'll also discuss this when relevant. We will focus on production, right? So of course, it's not going to be from the first video, but we will have production concerns in mind. So I'm not going to simply set process.env some variables here ad hoc. How would I set these variables in a production environment? How would I be concerned with authentication, with authorization? How would I be concerned with the traffic in my application? How am I going to manage my backend services, my microservices, so that the application is fault tolerant, so that it can continue working to a great extent even if 1, 2, or 3 microservices fail. So these concerns that are more for the companies or for the projects that want to really go out into production, we will have them here, because I think you will find no project within any company or any professional environment that doesn't have these concerns. So why not cover them while developing our application? So the goal is also to then practice all these topics by coding a real-world, fully functional social media application. So there are many social media applications out there, and I thought, okay, why not one more? Well, it's better than a to-do app, right? Maybe so many to-do apps out there with courses and so on, but of course, no company is going to develop a to-do app. So many courses about e-commerce, okay, but how practical is that? Well, social media app, I thought that we can also use it, right? So if we are developing something that you as a person, as a user, can go there, can log in, and can interact with the application, and can help testing the application, and can become an active part of development, then why not? So let's give it a try. Something a little bit different, and of course much more complex than a to-do, much even than an e-commerce. And I was thinking yesterday about how I can actually introduce the concept of transactions so that we can have some additional challenges with microservices. We will get to this point, right? That's at some point we will get to this point. The idea here is that I don't have a clear picture yet about the entire functionality of the social media application, but what I want to do is to keep it as a set of isolated microservices, so that if I want to develop a new functionality, I can easily develop this functionality without having to change everything else, right? So I will think about it in more details, and as the project evolves, we will then agree on which functionalities are going to be developed to this application. So following this, bring together people interested in the same topics as I am. So if you are interested in these topics mentioned here on the top, or any other topic that is related to programming, then perhaps I'm also interested in it. So here I don't mention anything related to machine learning, data science, data analytics, artificial intelligence, optimization, simulation, but I'm also very interested in these topics. I'm actually studying to a great extent the world of machine learning with microservices, and I'm planning to do a follow-up course on this one, if I have time, of course, but how to use, for example, Kubernetes, Kubeflow, and so on to develop your, let's say, machine learning pipelines, right? So this, I think, is a more to the future project. I still need to study a lot before I consider myself capable of transmitting this knowledge, but just to let you know, I'm also very interested in it. Okay, here, possibly offer a developer-friendly environment for those that want to have their first contact with coding in a professional environment. So I come from a business background, and it was quite tough to enter the development world. But once I did, it's a world that is very dynamic, right? So maybe you are also interested in programming, and maybe you have some portfolio, you've done some indie programming, but you're lacking that contact with a professional environment. This is something that possibly I can offer here. Maybe onboard some people to the development as the project is a little bit more advanced. We'll see about that. That's why I put possibly, I'm not so sure. And as a consequence, yeah, possibly collaborate on the development of the tool. Okay, high-level stack, very basic. I heard some time ago in a conference, so the best decisions are the decisions that are not made yet, right? Because then you can change them. But I've done already some decisions here that I will stick with it throughout the application, because I think I've worked with it in the past and I like the patterns that emerge from this. So of course, front end is always a choice. I mean, you can do Angular, you can do Vue, you can do React, you can do whatever you want. Then you can use Redux, you can use just React hooks, you can use GraphQL, you can use Relay, you can use Apollo client. I'm going to stick with Apollo client because it's agnostic, right? So you can use Apollo client with React, you can use Apollo client with Vue. It's really, so it's more applicable than Relay, I think, because Relay, as far as I know, it's limited to the world of React. But in any case, so front end is going to be React plus Apollo client. The back end, at least the authentication service, we will build with Node.js. It may be the case that some other services, maybe some more data intensive services, we build with Python. For the API gateway, I'm not sure yet, right? So I will still do some research. Maybe I'll go with the Apollo server side of things, and then that would be Node. And the Apollo, so GraphQL federation to break up the microservices, but I'm still thinking about it. So that's why I don't make a decision about it yet. Plus it's an additional, it's a step that is much, much further down the road. Okay, of course, Docker plus Kubernetes. If we talk about microservices, we talk about Kubernetes. If we talk about Kubernetes, we talk about Docker, right? So we will stick to these two tools. Let's not try to innovate anything here. They are the widely adopted tools, so let's use them. GitHub and GitHub Actions for CD and for CI, right? So we'll start with CI, not with CD. The idea of CI is that continuous integration, right? Is that you will have the code that is being developed to be continuously integrated into the system. Now, this can be continuously deployed, or it can be deployed in well-determined stages, right? So the continuous deployment, I think it will be a much later stage in these videos. The continuous integration is going to be right from the beginning. Okay, today's goals. So for today, set up the GitHub repository and the remote repo on GitHub. We can define the project's folder structure, maybe some basic things. Implement the ESLint, pre-year TSC and pre-commit checks. So we'll see how to do that. What I also want to do is not to give you everything by hand. So I see in many of the courses that what happens is that the person who is speaking is just saying, you type this, you type this, you type this command, you type that command, and this is for this is for that, and this is for this something else. But this doesn't really give you the process of finding those commands, right? So what do I need to do so that I can access the ESLint configuration or the pre-year configuration or implement a pre-commit hook, right? So I will do the research myself during these videos. I'll try to keep it short. Sometimes I'm going to stumble into problems. I'm not going to cut these problems out. I'm going to fail. I'm going to have errors in my code, and I'm not going to cut this out because these will happen with you. It's often that I spend half a day at work trying to fix some error that is happening in my code. And if you look at online courses, you don't see that happening, right? So of course, I'm not going to spend half a night or half a day here with you debugging something. If I see that it's something that is going wrong and that there is a big problem with that, then I would stop, solve it, and then come back and present the steps, right? But if there are minor things, then definitely we will do these together. Okay, set up the authentication service. What does this mean? This means npm init-y. That's it. That's the setup, right? So just start with npm, install a couple basic packages, and then work with them. Start writing our first test. That's what I want to say. We write our first test and then we make our first test pass, or we hope to do it, right? So let's begin. I think that's enough for my introduction talk. It's already 20 minutes. That's a lot. So maybe I switch to my IDE, and then I can also open up. Let me open up my terminal here, and let me see if I can add my terminal so that you can see it. Just give me 1 second. And here, window, and that would be iterm2. Okay. So I think right now you should also be able to see my terminal. This is just in case we need it. But for my purposes here, I will use mostly the IDE. Okay, so let's begin very quickly. So first thing, git init, right? So we initialize an empty git repository, and the first thing we want to do afterwards is to add a good git ignore, right? So this git ignore is going to be the file that is going to tell us, or to tell Git, which files it's supposed to ignore or not to include once we are committing our changes. So let's go back to the browser, and one thing that I like here is I can just look for git ignore node, maybe template. It's gonna help me a little bit faster to find the file. And as you can see, I'll just hit copy and paste the git ignore into my IDE. That's it. Okay, so why do I do this? Well, because this has already a lot of directories and files that I'm not interested in, and that I'm not really aware that they are, or that they should be ignored, right? So there is just a couple of additional files that I would put for me here at the end with IDE specific, but this is just because every time I try to commit, I don't like adding this .idea folder. This is specifically from WebStorm, but I don't like committing it. Okay, so first things first, quick git status. As you can see, there is still this file here, .ds ignore, and I will, ds store, and I will also add this to my git ignore, as I don't like it. Okay, now I have only the ignore, and I can add everything and commit with my first. Let's follow the commit standards, right? Semantic commit. So first commit, right? Okay, with that in mind, then I think it also makes sense for us to make our first directory. So I said that I wanted to discuss a little bit the structure of the project with you. And I think it makes sense at the beginning, at least, for me to start creating one folder per microservice, right? So authentication is going to be a microservice by itself. Client is going to be a microservice by itself. Post is going to be a microservice by itself. Friends is going to be a microservice. Chat is going to be a microservice. So all these little aspects are going to be microservices. So I'm not sure whether this is going to stay the same, but again, that's the process, right? The process is, let's make a good enough architecture or a good enough distribution of files so that we can move forward with the development as it is, right? If we change this a little bit afterwards, it's also fine. So I'll just move into this directory, and then here npm init-y. Right, so this gives me the initial file for my application, the package.json file. And as you can see here, there are a couple of fields. So main here is not going to be index.js. This is going to be index.ts because I'm going to use TypeScript, right? So so the process when you are developing is to use a package.json file. This file gives all the information about the package that we are developing. So we consider auth to be a package from NPM's perspective. I have a name, I have a version, I have a description. So authentication microservice for our social media app, right? Then I have a main file which says what is the entry point of this package. Then I have a series of scripts which we later on will have maybe a dev script or a start dev script, and there's going to be some script. Then we'll have some start prod script, or maybe just start. We will have a test, we will have a lint script, which is also going to be going to be targeted at linting our application, the code of our application. And let me just keep them in alphabetical order because that's what I prefer to do. Then we have prettier, right? Prettier is going to be another script. Then we have prettier fix. This will also be another script. And as you can see, these are scripts that I am just defining, right? So if I simply write something like this, echo linting, right? Or if I write then here echo checking prettier formatting, or echo fixing prettier formatting, echo starting dev server, echo starting prod server. Okay, so if I have something like this and then I run here in my terminal npm run run lint, then as you can see it's going to print linting. So this is a fully flexible script that I can put as many commands as I want in here. So normally this would be a ESLint command, something like this. And this would then go through our code and check that it's working, or it is conforming the rules that I define on my linting file. Okay, good. Author, well, I'm gonna put myself here, but maybe that's up for change later on. Keywords, not necessary. We'll leave it as it is for now, right? So another file that we need is index.ts, that we need for sure. This is going to be our application. So, okay, or at least the entry point of our application. We will of course create subfolders in here, and we will go much further into development. So it will get a more complicated, more complex structure. Okay, then the next thing that I would like to do with you is to start installing a couple of packages. So to begin with, we will need for sure to have Express, right? And because we are working with TypeScript, we also need to install the types for Express. We will also work with Jest. We will also work with Supertest. And I think maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I need TS Jest as well. TS Jest. Okay, let me install these ones. So let me switch to my browser for a few minutes to have a look at how exactly to set up, right? So Express, how would I do it is Node Express TypeScript. No, Node Express TypeScript. So maybe what I really want is just to get started. So as you can see, there are a couple of pages that were already helping me here, right? Many showing me how to set up. So it's a well-known process just to begin with it. So Express, the TypeScript. Okay, I need to add TypeScript and TS Node, right? So these two things in my IDE. npm install TypeScript TS Node. So you give a couple of seconds, it's going to install these things. And as you can see, it's already starting to list them in my dependencies, right? So I did a small little mistake here. Not mistake, but by default, we tend to put types not under the dependencies because they don't really need to be installed when I'm building my production application. So we normally put them under dev dependencies, right? So to be under dev dependencies, you would simply run npm install save dev and then your packages here, right? So the idea is that we would have these types and maybe some other test, for example, jest can also be for the dev dependencies. I don't need jest for production. Super test can also be to the dev dependencies because I also don't need this for production, and ts jest I also don't need for production. Okay. I need to be aware that I cannot forget to switch screens in my screen recorder. Okay, so with this, let's see what else they say. Maybe dev dependencies. I need to add a tsconfig JSON. Yeah, maybe that is necessary. Maybe I don't need to worry about it. I think that if I don't customize anything, it's going to be fine. I need to install the types node, right? So npm install save dev types node, and then we will do the oops, I forgot to save this file. Yeah, okay, let's load the differences here. I'll just copy and paste them again. Not a problem. So jest, supertest, ts jest, they come here. Okay, now I save it. So let me have a look at my git status. As you can see, the whole folder. So at the root directory for my git, I have these 3 files. So now to begin my application, I think that everything I have to do, yeah, maybe we also install NodeDaemon. So this can also be useful for us. npm install NodeDaemon. We will install it at least to begin with. Let's see if, I think I've used it in the past. I think it's a tool that, so this is a tool that would allow us to start our development server, right? NodeDaemon, like this. So as you can see now, I changed my start dev to NodeDaemon, and if I run here from within my terminal, let me see, yeah, start dev, then okay, clean exit, waiting for changes before start. So it seems to me to be working correctly. So let me try to set up maybe just a basic from, so import express from express, if I'm not mistaken, right? And I think that is something like this maybe. Now I think I need to do some additional setup, because otherwise it's not gonna work. So let me just bring you to this screen here as well and import express. Okay, so this I need to allow the ES module interoperability in order to be able to do this import. So I'm just gonna go ahead, and in this I will touch, I'll create tsconfig.json, and just to explain a few things of this one. Of course, there are many other configurations that I can use from here, and my goal is to maybe give you an understanding of what these mean, because of course then later on, as we need to tweak our application, we may come back here and switch a few things. So as you can see, as soon as I added this tsconfig file, then the error in the express went away, right? So what does this mean? So the target, it means that I need to, so when I'm using TypeScript, I need to compile this TypeScript into a JavaScript equivalent, right? So TypeScript is a super type, is a language that is built on top of JavaScript. And I need to transpile this into JavaScript code. And there are different versions of JavaScript. So which target am I going to use? This is going to be ES5, ES3, ES6, maybe 2019, 2020. Depends, right? Then I have a root directory, which is the directory that I'm working with. And we will see that files such as tsconfig, they are going to be shared among many services. So we will, in the future, bring together these files into a common package that then we can deploy into GitHub registry. So the package registry, and then install in our application. And if we change that package, we will deploy a new version and we will update the version in package.json. So it's going to be a more robust development cycle, right? So out there, that's going to be the target directory for our transpiled files. Then this here, it allows me to import default exports from applications, so or from packages, and strict true. Then I think that even if maybe I can, yeah, as you can see, that's very interesting. So if, at least in my IDE, if I hold command and I hover over, right, so enable all strict type checking options. So I'm not sure what these are. I'm gonna leave it as true because I think strict is better than not strict. But for the moment, we will go with this configuration here. And if you want to investigate, then of course you can simply come to Google and you will type tsconfig JSON. There you go, documentation. What is a tsconfig? Then they give you a couple of keys or attributes that you can use to customize your application, and yeah, that can be quite useful. So the source map here, maybe I also want to create a source map for my files, right? So just add this into my code. Okay, include, exclude, that's quite straightforward, I think. It's going to include all the files based on this glob pattern, and it's going to exclude these files from the transpiler. Then yeah, we can also, this we are going to do later on, right? How to extend our base config, and maybe I can then change a couple of keys here. So let's see the recommended that they suggest for us. Once I click on recommended, then this is the tsconfig file that they present as recommended. So as you can see, we also have strict as true here. What we are missing is skip lib check and force consistent casing in file name. So let's add these two to our tsconfig. And force should be here. Okay. Good. I guess we are good to go with our tsconfig file. And the next thing I want to do with you is to, well, maybe we could set up as well ESLint and Prettier and the pre-commit hook. But before, or no, let's do it now. Okay, so I'm going to do it again coming to Google, so there is no missing steps here. ESLint for what? Express application. Right, there you go, how to configure. It gives me everything, but maybe, yeah, okay. I think, yeah, I like the Airbnb base. So I already worked with this Airbnb ESLint in the past. It's a very strict linting package, so it has a lot of rules, and I will start with it, right? If we come to a conclusion that we can change this or we should change this afterwards, we will do it. But to begin with, let's install in my auth directory the ESLint, the ESLint config Airbnb base, and the ESLint plugin import. And then here, yeah, let's see the list of available rules. So as you can see, they have a lot of rules. You cannot see because I'm not sharing my screen. There you go. So as you can see, they have a lot of rules, and well, it really depends on how much you want to actually be strict about your fold, about your code, right? So the recommended that they have, okay, so the recommended implements all the rules that have a check mark next to it. So it seems to me to be quite interesting, but I'll go with the Airbnb. In any case, it is good enough for me, right? So here I will also do a .eslint rc.js. I think that is the name of the file. Let me get the name of the file again. ESLint rc.js, exactly. And then in this file, I can create, I can override, right? So I can create a configuration and I can override the specific rules from this Airbnb base. So let me maybe copy this and with module oops, I didn't share this. With module.exports, this is going to be maybe something like this, right? So I can say extends the Airbnb base, environment is this one, and rules are something like this, right? So for now, I think this is good enough for us. Maybe, yeah, maybe we will update this in the future, but I will have a look. So var I don't want, and yeah, okay. So how do I actually test whether linting is working, right? So the only thing I need to do is now see if I can run ESLint on my, so of course command is not found, and this is probably because, well, let me see here. The bin is here, so let me see what happens if I simply pass it ESLint like this. Okay, yeah, there we go. So as you can see, there are no problems with our codes because there is nothing whatsoever with our code. But if I add, let's say, some var, then I think it should start complaining. Let me see. Let's see. No. Okay, well, we will assume that it is correctly set up. Nah, that's not a good idea to assume something. So maybe I get the... how can I... Okay, so let's go back to the browser and then let's see. Run ESLint node project. Right, getting started with ESLint. Okay, then maybe I think set up a configuration file. This I already have. So I think I need to pass my configuration file. I'm missing the configuration file here, although I would expect it to automatically now this is of course, I think I'm just missing the directory. Yeah, I'm just gonna do a little change here. Oops. Yeah, I'm just gonna do a little change here, and I'm gonna create a new directory where I'm gonna put all my files. Right. So also here in source, and let me see now if I can start my dev. I think that this would be a problem because it's not gonna find the entry point. So I need to update this in the package.json or in the ts config. Actually, root dir. What did it say here? Starting cannot find module of index in function. So entry point maybe. Okay, yeah. So I'm just pointing nodemon to the correct file, and then the ESLint. I'm interested in doing an ESLint on the source folder. So let me see what's going to do now. Okay, no files matching the pattern were found. So here I'll just add all of the files. Express is defined but never used. Okay, now we are getting the errors that we don't want to get, but at least ESLint is working correctly, right? Good, then we will make our Express file work. Let me just put a very simple GET request. Right here I get rec and res, and then I'm gonna have res.send an empty response to whatever get request that I get, and then I'm gonna have app.listen. I need to pass a port, and then I pass a callback, and this is going to be console.log listening on port 3000, right? Quite simple, quite classical. Now I shouldn't get linting errors. Oh, I have 7 problems. Okay. Okay. Now, as you can see, the that's where the linting starts to get quite annoying, right? So missing semicolon. This would all be done by the prettier formatter, right? New line required at the end of the file but not found. Okay, then okay, we have no errors. It's working fine. Just for you to be a little bit more aware of the errors that were shown to me once I ran ESLint into my file. As you can see, it started complaining. Okay, strings must use single quote, right? Line 5, so it was this problem here. Then I had missing semicolon on line 6, this problem here. Then on line 7, this problem here. So as you can see, the messages that I have here, they are quite self-explanatory. And I really like this about ESLint, because it really forces us to be consistent about our coding style, right? So this is going to be added soon to a pre-commit hook, which we are going to use to run every time we run a git commit command, right? So, okay. For now, I think ESLint is integrated. Let's integrate Prettier now. So let me switch again to my browser and let's do some research here. So Prettier, Airbnb, TypeScript, Node, right? ESLint config. So, okay. What I'm missing is Prettier ESLint config Prettier. So npm install save dev. I didn't copy for some reason. Oops. Give me just 1 second to install these things. I will switch again to my IDE quite soon, because I just want to get the correct command for Prettier. Okay, then now I can switch to my IDE. And now I don't have Airbnb base anymore. If I come back to the documentation, okay, I'll have to switch again to the browser. Now, as you can see, the module.exports for the .eslint.rc.js is not Airbnb base anymore, it's Airbnb TypeScript Prettier, right? So I come back to my IDE and I will adjust this config, and I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to remove all these things, and now let's see, run lint. So maybe I'm not going to have any problems here. Okay, I have 4 problems. Replace, okay, so now it is complaining that yeah, no, but I want the single quotes. I don't want the double quotes, but maybe I can do this afterwards. Let's see here now what happens if I run the Prettier command, right? So Prettier, what here, maybe source. Let's see if let's see what's gonna happen. Okay, didn't happen anything. Let's go back to the browser and let's see how to run Prettier. The prettier.rc, this is what we are missing. So I'll come back to my IDE. I will add the Prettier RC file and I'll just copy and paste this, because I don't want to use, what is that? No space, trailing comma. I don't want trailing comma. What are the options for me? None. Print width 100, overrides files, option parser, TypeScript. Okay, then now I think that we are good to go for with the Prettier. Let me just do a double check here, set up Prettier to make sure that everything is working correctly. Then we have, yeah, okay, save exact Prettier, ignore artifacts, Prettier, write, dot, right? So this is going to be the okay. So these are the commands that I can use in order to run my Prettier. So, oops. Let's see what's gonna happen. Why is it? Prettier, what is it? Check. Or what am I missing? Right, maybe. Aha, there you go. Okay, now it should have fixed. Let's give it a try. So here, as you can see, I'm going to use double quotes, right? So in my prettier config, I marked single quotes. So once I run prettier, then it should change this back. Okay, there you go. I have single quotes. So now prettier is correctly fixing my code for me. If I do maybe some messy stuff with my code, maybe something like this, right, to get it really messy, and I'll put like my callbacks all down here, then I think that if I run prettier, this should fix my code quite well. Right, of course, it respects maybe some developers' preference, so it's not gonna get rid of every single formatting that I do, but it's gonna definitely take us to a better state than if we just let the code grow by itself. Over the course of the videos, we'll see some rules maybe that we can use to make prettier work with us, or make the code more comfortable to our preferences. Now I just want to make sure that the linting is going to be compatible with the prettier, because as you can imagine, oh, where is it? Okay, now I want to make sure that, so maybe let me give it a try. Okay. Okay, well, for these purposes here, for me to avoid having conflicts with, okay, it's better like this. For me to avoid having conflicts with the ESLint configuration, I will leave the prettier configuration at its default. We may go back to this, it's not a big problem. We'll see as the code scales whether there is any problem, right, with the formatting. For now, I think it's fine. So this is a matter of personal preference here. Okay, I think that now we go into the final step of our setup, which is for the pre-commit hook, right? Pre-commit hook, git, let's say express maybe, node, right? Because I want to make sure that I am executing the commands. That's not the best. I already had one here. Yeah, but this one is checking everything. So what I'm gonna do is lint staged and husky. Right? So I know these tools here. I was using them for front end, but I would expect them to also work for back end. So let me install these two. I'm always looking only for the npm install command. Give it a couple of seconds. Okay, and now I can come back and see how exactly I can configure this, but I think it's quite straightforward. Right, so if I have, the lint staged, that's what I thought. So if I add this to my package.json file, if I come here, what I added at the end. So now I have a command, right, that is going to, and maybe I break this down a little bit into parts. So the lint staged is going to execute some commands on files that match this description and this description, and that are staged for commit, right? So if I have a file that I have run git add to that file, then this file is going to be checked by these commands. And here in my case, all I want is just the TS files that I want to run the lint staged. I want to run ESLint. I don't want to fix. I want to run prettier, and here I want to fix, and then I will run git add. Here I don't need this file. Why don't I need it? Because this is stylelint. Stylelint is for CSS files, and there are no CSS files in an authentication service. And Husky is going to tell Git to run this command lint staged before it commits the files. So let's give it a try. Git status. I have a couple of files here. I have modified my index.ts, right? So if I come here into git diff, then I will see that at some point, oh yeah, no, that's the package.json file. So let's go to the source and just do a git diff in this source. Oops. Git diff source. No, nothing, because maybe it's already staged for commit. No, why is it not getting the interesting. Well, in any case, let me add this, and now as you can see I have the new file here, index.ts. So once I want to commit this, let's put it feat, so as a feature, and this is going to be second commit, right, because our second commit. And as you can see, it is running these tasks for all the files, and it already found a couple of problems. So parser options, so it doesn't matter. Okay. I think that this is not going to be, so this should be, I think that the lint staged, I can simply run the commands that I have here at the top. I need to have a closer look into this. Maybe npm run lint, run prettier, and let me see here, that would be, so this here would be prettier check, right? So the prettier here would be prettier check, and the prettier fix would then be prettier right. So I want to run this before I run npm run lint, and before I add everything. So let's see if this is going to work. Yeah, I'm not so sure, but okay, seems to be working correctly. Exactly, yeah. So it was just a matter of pointing to the right files. So as you can see, it passed all the tests, and maybe I don't need, it's saying here, some of your tasks use git add command, please remove it from the config since all modifications will be automatically added. So maybe I could get rid of this if I wanted to. Okay, we are running a little bit already. 1 hour of video. Maybe nobody's going to watch 1 hour of video, but so this is going to be, I think, broken down a little bit in the future. But this first video with a lot of setup, as you can see, it will create a very good basis for us to have scalable development. Remember, code quality. Okay, then last thing that we need to do is to write our first test. So tests, normally, right, by convention we would put the tests under a __ tests __ file, and then we simply write index.test.ts, for example, normally always at the same level as, so the test file at the same level as the files you are testing, right? If I had another directory here, then that directory would contain a _ tests folder. So for the tests here, I think I import request. Yeah, I want to import request from supertest. Is it installed? No, I don't think so. I think I also need to start install the types. Let me see what it exactly. I need to install the types for supertest. So npm install save dev types supertest. Right, give it a couple of seconds. Okay, very nice. Now it's complaining that has no exported member request, so it's probably a top level import. Exactly. So here, what I am going to do is that, as you can see, I need an application. So yeah, not as you can see, right? But as supertest works. So let me go back to the browser here. And my supertest, I'll just come here to the package of supertest to give an example, right? So here is the basic structure that we are going to use. The idea is that supertest makes it very easy for me to send requests to an Express application. So if I pass this application to supertest, to this request top level of supertest, then I can easily call the method .get/user and then expect some stuff back, right? Expect a code of 200, for example, and then I'm gonna end with something if I want to. But then I can write a couple of expects here. And if I write an await here in front, this is going to, so if I assign this to any variable, this is going to be the result of this whole request. So let's try to write one test, right? First thing, export const app. So I'm just exporting this. We will change. So I will add a to do, change, and do the proper setup, right? Or maybe we do it now because it's not that much of a problem. So we have app. We'll do it like this. Express is actually going to be here. This I don't need to do. App, then app.get is also going to be here. And so const app, app.get, and then export app, right? So now if I come to my file, then I can import app from .app, right? And then now I can listen to my to the port 3000. So if I come here and I run start dev, then it should still be working. Exactly, listening on port 3000. So let's send a request. Oh, I think I was still in the browser. Oops, sorry. Let me go back here. So do a little bit of undoing. Okay, we were at this stage. So I said that I would postpone this, but I actually opted for doing it now. So okay, good. These are the 2 steps that you missed on my IDE. So the first thing that I did was simply to create an app.ts file, right? Nothing much. As you can see, the Nodemon is giving me an error because I deleted the file, but so just stop for a bit. As you saw when we discussed about the supertest, what I need to do is I need to provide an app to the supertest, right? To the supertest request. So what I am going to do is, instead of exporting the app from here, I will actually split this up. So I'm just gonna take this whole thing into its own file, right? So I'm gonna give app its own file. Now the application is installed initialized in this file, and then I will export this as an app, because then I can reference this app from both my startup file and my test file. So now here, if I import app from app, then I can simply do a app.listen. And as you can see, if I run start dev, then it should, everything is working fine. Let's go back to the browser. And if I run localhost 3000, I get an empty response, which is exactly what I'm sending, right? Good. For the test that's missing here, right? So I also need to import my app from the upper directory app. And then here I can create my first test. It, let's say, responds with a status of 200, right? For any test, I pass a callback function. This is how jest works. So I give a description to the test, and then I pass a callback function to that test, right? So now here, if I have request of app dot get, let's say, the normal URL dot expect 200, right? And this should be my test. So let me see if I am setting the response here. Res dot status 200 dot send. Let's see what's gonna happen in my test. So in the package.json file, I need to now run jest by simply changing the test command into a jest command. After changing to jest, there is still a couple of things that we need to do because we are using TypeScript, right? So within still the package.json file, maybe we'll go back to this and we'll split this up in a few videos into its own config file. But here I need to inform about the test environment, and the test environment is Node that I'm using. So here you can see that it populates with JS DOM, right? JS DOM is used for front-end testing. So when you need a DOM to test your application. In my case, I'm going to use Node, and I also want to have a preset of TS jest, right? This is because I'm using TypeScript again. So let's see if I can run my tests. So npm run npm run test. Okay, it finds my test, it passes, right? So now let's see what happens if I change this status to be 400, and of course this should fail, right? Okay, I think I need to somehow kill this. Yeah, maybe if I mark this as async and this as await, but maybe let's see. Okay, yeah, it has executed and it expected a 400, but it got a 200, an okay response. So now if I switch to 200, then it should be working just fine. Exactly, and then it also exits, right? Because this request here, it returns a promise, and we need to wait for that promise to resolve in order to be able to correctly exit the application. Okay, good. I think that we have covered enough, so maybe we can quickly go through the points that we have covered today. The first one, we just discussed a couple of aspects related to the project that we are going to develop. Then we moved into setting up the local repository and to setting up linting prettier so that our files look nice, and integrating this into a pre-commit hook, right? So now every time we commit, So let me again check here. I have a couple of git status here that are not committed yet, so I can test that. Git add, git commit, feat, add, first test, right? And as you can see, then it's going to, oops. Sorry, yeah, small mistake here. I don't want to run only run prettier. I want to run prettier fix, right? So there were some problems here. What it's telling me is code style issues found in the above files. So I have a problem here, and then it tells me forgot to run prettier. So I can actually just, because the only thing I would do is to run npm run prettier fix and then rerun the command to commit. So what I'm doing is I would just run prettier fix from the lint staged command so that it always makes sure that the prettier guidelines are applied, right? So git add dot, and then again we can just repeat the git commit. Let's see what's gonna do. Yeah, now it passes correctly. And now let's see the npm run prefer default export. Okay, so this is telling me export default app, something like this. Maybe this one we could get rid of this in the future. Let me just update now, because I'm not exporting a named export, I'm exporting a default export, and now it should pass. Oh no, it should not, because I did not add the things. Now it should pass. Yes, great. So we have a very basic setup. That's how we start things, right? With a basic setup, but that is already more consistent than a lot of setups you will find out there, because it is already keeping in mind code style, best practices of development, and already automating everything so that we can either from the command line or from the pre-commit hook enforce that our code is following good practices. Okay, this has absolutely no additional effort for us as developers. Of course, if we don't go crazy and start doing crazy things with the code, it will be minor mistakes. It will point out minor mistakes that we will be able to fix quite quickly and to make sure that our code is consistent. Okay, so with this, I would like to finish the video of today. Thank you very much for your time, for your patience, and I hope that this video offered a value to you, right? So if you have any suggestions, and then you can just write it down in the comments. Thank you very much, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.